Hello and welcome to the audio class for Wednesday, September 30th. I'm going to let people in from the waiting room.
Hey Greg,
Hey, how you doing, Dylan?
good. Are you?
Good. Anything new and exciting?
Not too much.
Just same old?
I had to replace my car battery on Monday.
Yeah? Uh,
Yeah, I had to leave it there overnight because my car wouldn't start, and then I had somebody pick me up, and then I went go back to get it. So that was fun.
I actually feel your pain. I took my car over to get the window glass replaced, and then my battery died right there at the window place.
Oh wow,
So the guy jumped me, and I had just enough juice to make it to AutoZone, and then I had to get a new battery.
it's almost similar to my situation. I
Yeah, it sucks, man.
think it's that time of the year too.
Yeah. Hey, well, let me go ahead and put all you guys in the roll here. I'll get you in the Pima attendance, and then we will get started. Okay.
What up, fam?
Hey, Vlad, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm alive.
That is actually that's a super good attitude. I wish I had that attitude when I wake up. When you wake up, do you think about the things you're glad about or the things that you're troubled by?
I think I want to go back to sleep.
That's the best answer yet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I think it's good to count your blessings. I don't do it as much as I should, but I think maybe it's human nature. We take the things that are going okay for granted, and then we focus on the things that aren't going so hot. Okay, let's do the attendance here. Let's see, get rid of that. That, okay. And this, and some of those. All right, let's see. That. Okay. All right, let me go to the class website here. No, it was just up there, so it'll be somewhere. Hmm. No. Okay, basic audio production. Okay, so all right, so let's see. So today, of course, we have that open book quiz that I talked to you guys about on Monday, and I'd like to have you, you know, drop in the answers to that and get it to me either via email or via dropping it in your Google Drive. I guess email would be the preferred of those two options. Did some of you guys do that already?
Almost there.
Oh, okay. Did any of you guys have any questions about that quiz? Okay. So I'll give you some time at the end of the class to work on that if you like to, if you haven't quite finished. But let me see. Let's see. We have a student who may be giving a presentation today if they show up. If not, then we'll just move on past that. But so Ken, thank you. You emailed me and Jillian, I got yours as well. So thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and share the class website. And here it is. So the first thing I wanted to start out with is, it's pretty helpful sometimes to see previous student work on assignments that you're doing at this point, because it can give you ideas of what to do, maybe what not to do. And so what I have are some student videos of the Foley project, which is the one you're working on right now. So let me go over to Google here. Okay. So I'm just going to play these. These are just these are from a year ago because this audio class is offered every fall, and you know, you'll see a variety of different things here. One thing that I wanted to show you first actually is the it's just a checklist that somebody made. I think it was Angelique made this for her. She was working on with a um, team on this project, and so she calls it Foley Sound Effects. And she wrote down her idea: found footage, cult horror thriller, location East Campus, characters very stereotypical college students working on a project together. So then they give everybody nicknames, not like other girls, Girl Angelique, VSCO Girl Lily, Pretentious Rory, Stoner Juan, Hipster Film Student Zach, equipment needed camcorders and mic. And then she wrote some, you know, some notes here about what would be the different video shots, and then audio. So sound effects, zippers, footsteps, things like that, chanting, creepy music, dialogue. And here's some Foley sound effects, and she put some links to where she could get some of those. You guys might check these links out yourself. This magazine.com and marblehead.net. And then here's a list of all the different sound effects that they needed to collect. So I just thought this was a good sort of collection of information that she did to put together for the project. Okay, but let's watch some of these projects and see what we think.
I like the music.
Yeah, I know. The music was very cool. I like
Yeah.
that kind of homemade music, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, and then let's see. I think these two are the same one, so sorry about that. Two of them got into the folder that are the same. Let me go down. It's probably because they were a team, and I took it from two different folders. Let's see. Maybe this is a different one. Let's hope. That
Those
was
were the same guys.
yeah. So obviously they were doing it as a team, and they were out there shooting several of them. But that one's a little dark. Did you guys did that come through as kind of dark for you guys?
A little
Very
bit.
much so.
Yeah. Okay. Let me go back to here, and we'll see the next one. Okay, so I believe this is the one that Angelique was writing about with the creepy music and stuff.
All right. All right, here is my sound person, my slepper,
I was gonna do that.
my social media guru,
Wait, what?
and sadly, this has here. We're here to check out the reports of the haunting at the East Campus of Pima. Come on, guys, this is our shot at the big time.
What?
That's creepy as fuck. Alright, where are these statues supposed to be? Hey, do you guys know where the statues are?
Oh, those statues over there?
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
Do what?
Because the last person that went there never came back.
They said I was crazy to dumb Blue miss this class. I'm the real filmmaker here. I'm the real filmmaker.
What the fuck was that, man? What the fuck was that?
What was that? What was that? Oh my
I don't know what the fuck that was.
Hey, you know Daisy?
Okay. Who you? Follow me on Instagram, guys. I'm just kidding.
Just your name so we can put you in the credits?
Waleed Noyish. Oh,
Noman
wait.
Nabi.
Retake. Waleed Noyish.
Alright.
Noman Nabi.
Okay, so there's that one. That was a little disjointed, but at least it looks like they had fun while they were doing the project, right?
That vertical video shot hurt my eyes.
Okay, let's see. So we've seen that one. We've seen those. Okay, this one. I think we're going to end with this one. Might be a little on the long side, but I think you guys will get a kick out of it.
S'mores Poputaruto. Is that a s'mores Pop Tart?
Yeah, you got a problem with that?
Yeah. That's the worst flavor.
What?
What? Yeah. Little bitch. Huh? Oh! All right.
Huh? Huh? You. Get up. What, you can't see? Right here. Oh. Fuck. Can't let me eat my Pop-Tart! Get away from me! You're... You crazy motherfucker. Wait, what are you doing? Oh! Look!
Strawberry Pop-Tart?
Strawberry fruitcake.
Okay, what do you guys think of that one?
That was great.
It's kind of like the endless fight, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought it was funny at first, like Dylan, when you were like, "What?"
I was like, that's my favorite flavor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
S'mores flavor? I didn't even know they had a s'mores flavor.
they're pretty great.
Yeah,
Did you
Definitely
feel
dessert.
attacked?
I don't know. Okay, so hopefully, that gave you guys some insight into different possibilities of things you could do with your Foley project.
Could I ask a question? What is the Foley project? I don't think I ever heard what it was.
Okay, so let's see. If we go to the class website, and then let me scroll down a little bit here. Let's see.
There it is.
Yeah. So, okay, it says write a paragraph describing a PSA, public service announcement, real or imagined, that uses as many sound effects as possible within a 1 minute time frame. See if you can come up with 10. I just gave you a number to see if you can come up with. And of course, it can be a little less or a little more. And then, I give you some examples like, right here, the example that I cited, and then here's 10 different sound effects that I thought up that you could potentially do with that, right? So yeah, that's it right there, and that's what we're working on.
Cool.
Okay, let's see. So the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to talk a little bit about some more information from this book right here, Modern Recording Techniques. And of course, this book is about the art and science of recording sound. And I have some notes here to talk about something which is called psychoacoustics. Psychoacoustics. That's kind of a weird term. It makes you think, oh my God, maybe it's like sounds that drive you mad. But it's not. It has to do with auditory perception. And you know how your eye can trick you sometimes. Like, you guys know what trompe l'oeil is, where you see a painting that fakes you out, like it looks like it's 3-dimensional, but it's really 2-dimensional. Have you guys seen some of those?
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's basically faking out your eye. Well, there are things that fake out your ear, whether intentional or not. And so that's falls into the category of psychoacoustics. And there's auditory perception, and it says that the ear is a nonlinear device. What's received at your ears is not always what you get at the brain. Now, there's a little misspelling here, or what the brain hears. So, in other words, we sometimes misperceive sound, just like sometimes we missee things. We think we hear something and we heard something else. It says the ear's frequency response is perception of timbre, which of course is the color of a sound. Does it sound rough or sweet? Different sort of adjectives you could use to describe sound. Changes with the loudness of the perceived signal. The ear's sensitivity to low and high signals is decreased at low listening levels, and the suggested listening level to minimize this effect is 85 decibels. Of course, decibels is a unit of measurement of the loudness of sound. Now, what all that means is that as a sound gets louder, you can, of course, hear it better, and so you can distinguish it better. So if a sound was made, far off in the distance, it would be like something that you would see far off in the distance. It might be a little out of focus with your vision. Well, you could use the same sort of terminology with hearing. You could say that you're hearing it a little bit out of focus. In other words, you hear a sound, it's kind of far away. It's hard to distinguish what that sound is. Was that a gunshot or was that a car backfiring, right? But as the sound gets louder, it becomes more clear what it is, and it becomes easier to distinguish what type of sound that is, because your brain can put it into a category, right? Now, there's a term that was used with music back in the, I would say the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. It was called the loudness wars. Has anybody ever heard that term, the loudness wars?
Sounds familiar.
Okay, so what it is, it refers to the fact that, it refers to the fact that in that period of time on the radio, basically, there was a war. Okay, here we go. Loudness war. There was a war in the audio industry to see who could put the loudest music out, right? Now you might think to yourself, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, that's just like sort of juvenile. Like, why would one record company put out a record and try to make it louder than another? Well, it has to do with the psychoacoustics. This is kind of a weird concept, but just think about it for a second. People perceive music that is louder as being better than music that is softer, okay? And the reason is because what I just told you, you can hear things better, you can distinguish things better. So let's say, for example, you had a rock band that was loud guitars and drums, but there were synthesizers kind of mixed in there, keyboards mixed in underneath all of the loud stuff, right? Well, when you crank that music up, suddenly the synthesizers become more prevalent and you can hear them and you get a better picture of the full mix of the sound, right? Because that's probably that 85 decibels that they mentioned as the sort of optimum listening level. That was probably the level at which they mix the sound, which means if you're listening to a song very quietly on your radio, it doesn't sound as good as if you turn it up. It's not just, the visceral thumping of the bass, but you can literally hear more in a more well-rounded version of the sound. So what happened was the radio companies and the studios tapped into that, and they figured out, basically the formula was louder is better, right? Louder means people will enjoy it more. It means they'll hear more and potentially buy more of your music. So everybody started turning their music up, and the music started to get really saturated on the recording mediums because it was so loud. So let me see here's the Wikipedia definition of the loudness war. It says the loudness war or loudness race refers to the trend of increasing audio levels in recorded music, which reduces audio fidelity. In other words, the music, like if you listen to an orchestra that's really playing at a perfect volume, you can hear every single instrument. You can hear the timpani drums and the little cymbals and the oboes and stuff. But as you crank everything through the roof, you can't hear those individual things as well. And that's the fidelity of the music, right? And according to many, so it says, refers to the trend of increasing audio levels in recorded music, which reduces audio fidelity and, according to many critics, listener enjoyment. So in other words, they went too far. they turn things up too loud, because once you go past a certain point, it's just noise, right? Increasing loudness was first reported as early as the 1940s. So I guess it was a trend that, happened all throughout the last century. With respect to mastering practices for 7-inch singles, the maximum peak level of analog recordings such as these is limited by varying specifications of electronic equipment, along with the chain from source to listener, including vinyl and compact cassette players. So what they were saying was the actual physical properties of cassettes and vinyls would only let you get so loud. This is an interesting concept, but a record, as it's spinning around, there's a little needle on it, which is, it's going along and it's following the grooves in the record, and those grooves in the record are being translated into electronic pulses, signals, which then come out of a speaker as sound, right? Well, if you take a bass guitar and you turn it up too loud and you put that on your mix on a record, believe it or not, the needle will literally just skip off the record, right? The groove is too deep, basically. And so there are limitations to how loud you can get things on a record or on a cassette. However, when they introduced in the 90s with the introduction of digital signal processing, which is used, it says right here, it's computerized sound, basically, then you could max sound out to unheard of levels. And so if you see this example over here, let me resize my screen so that we can see this. So here's the sound level of a 1980s Super Trooper LP, and you can see that the really super dark blue area is like the compressed sound, which means that's the main sound you're hearing, and everything else, these little spikes up and below are what you might call transients, and those are like loud sounds, like a snare beat that hits very quickly and goes to a very high amplitude. It's loud, but then it fades very quickly, so it doesn't stick around. But these are the main sounds of the record. But then you look at 2001, I guess this is a remaster of this, and you can look, this looks like it's approaching twice as loud, right? In a 20-year difference, right? 4 years later, they're even louder, right? You can see more blue. And then this is interesting. Down here in 2011, they go back down to a lower level. Let me see. I think that's it for my graphic. But anyway, that's the loudness war. Okay, let me go back to my notes here. And some of that has scaled down a little bit. I think people aren't as interested in doing the loudness war. They've sort of been there, done that, right? Now, what I have for you today are a couple of audio tutorials in Adobe Audition. Now, if you're interested, some people may like to do these tutorials themselves at home. If not, you're welcome to just watch. But most of the tutorials that I'm doing are from this link right here. This is the Modern Recording Techniques website. It matches the book, except that they give you like audio and video tutorials, right? And so we go here to the audio tutorials, and we're going to be doing two today. One is called Beats and one is called Masking. So let me see which one I've got first. Let's see, Audition is right here. Looks like Masking is first. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on Masking, and what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a couple of interesting phenomena about sound. Specifically, when you play more than one tone at the same time, when you're recording more than one tone at the same time, some of the strange effects that can happen. So one of them is called masking. And it says, masking is the phenomenon by which loud signal can prevent the ear from hearing softer sounds. The greatest masking effect occurs when the frequency of the sound and the frequency of the masking noise are close to each other. So in other words, you can sort of translate frequency to pitch. So in other words, if you have like a high-pitched sound that is kind of quiet, and then a high-pitched sound that's very close to it in pitch, but is much louder, the louder one will mask out the other one, right? Now that makes a certain amount of sense. If you've got something louder than something else, you're not going to be able to hear it. But it's even more than just common sense. It's because the pitches are so close together that what happens is the quieter pitch kind of gets eaten up and almost becomes like part of the frequency of the louder pitch, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play some tones, just very simple tones for you, and we're going to hear the difference of these. So first of all, we're going to play what's called 1,000 hertz tone. So this is a signal that is its frequency is 1,000 hertz. So let's go to audition. And okay, so I have 3 tones here. I've noticed I have 2 of them muted with this little M. And I'm going to play this. I'm going to make sure it's nice and quiet so we don't blow our ears out here. I'm going to play this. It's just a single tone, probably generated by a synthesizer. Okay, so that's a tone at 1,000 hertz. Now it says, solo both the 1,000 and the 4,000 hertz tones and listen to the combined results. Can you hear both of the tones clearly? Now, think about the fact that something that's vibrating at 1,000 hertz versus something that's vibrating at 4,000 hertz, there's a big difference there, right? So the pitch of one is going to be much higher than the other. So the idea here is you should be able to hear both tones, right? So I'm gonna do it a little differently. I'm gonna play the first tone, then I'm gonna play the second tone, and then I'm gonna play the 2 together. So once again, here's the first tone. Okay, so now I'm going to play the second tone. Okay, so obviously that's a much higher tone. Now, when we play the 2 together, you should be able to distinguish both tones because they're far enough apart. So I'll take this back to the beginning. I'll unmute the first one. So now here's both tones. Okay, so I'll ask you, can you hear both tones? Anybody? Dylan, can you hear both tones?
Yeah, I heard both.
Okay. And you can hear both because because even though they're both high pitched, their frequency is far enough apart. Now, masking occurs when 2 frequencies are very close together. So here's another tone. The tone on the bottom here is at 4,000 hertz. The tone in the middle is at 3,800 hertz. So it's very close. So once again, I'm going to play each one individually and then play the 2 together. Okay, so here's the 3,800s tone. Okay, here's the 4,000 hertz tone. Okay, now when I play the 2 together, because they're so close, the idea is they'll sort of merge into one tone and you won't hear 2 separate tones.
Yeah.
You hear that? You hear
Yeah.
how they just kind of combine to be this kind of weird, sort of discordant tone? So that's called masking. And sometimes, things like that can happen in audio, especially when you're recording music, of course, because then you have isolated tones. Like you might have a singer, what if a singer is singing a certain pitch and a guitar has a pitch that's just a little below it? The 2 might combine, they might mask each other out and combine into this one weird tone that you don't really want, right? So that's the phenomenon of masking. And so let me go back to my notes here and see what it says about that. Let me go down a little bit, go over, and let's see, how do I get down in this damn browser? Here it is. So masking is the phenomenon where a loud signal prevents the ear from hearing softer sounds. Okay. All right, so there's a second tutorial that I want to play for you, which this one is called Beats. And let me go back here, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on the Beats tutorial. And it says 2 tones that differ only slightly in frequency and have approximately the same amplitude. And of course, amplitude is like the height of the sound wave, right? Will produce an audible effect known as beats, which are equal in frequency to the difference between the 2 tones. So in other words, if you just picture like a little sound wave going along and then another sound wave next to it that has the same height, what will happen is if the 2 are put next to each other, the difference between their sound waves will produce a new 3rd tone, like a phantom tone, which is called a beat, right? So once again, I'm going to play one signal and then the second one and then the two together. So let's go to the beats tutorial, which is right here. Okay, yeah. So first of all, we're going to play the first tone, which is at 400 hertz. Okay, you can hear that. It's a bit of a lower tone. Okay, now we're going to play the 400 and let's see, play the hold on a second. Let me make sure I played the right one. It says 440 and 445. I think I played the 440. Yeah, I did. Okay. So it says solo both the 440 and 445 hertz tones. So obviously those are pretty close in frequency. And listen to the combined results. Okay. So once again, the first one is this. Okay, and then the second one sounds like this. Okay, so those two, I don't know how well, how good you guys are at picking out, varying tones or whatever, but those two are pretty close, 440 and 445. They sound kind of similar. To the untrained ear, they might sound like the same sound because, people, somebody who hasn't practiced enough listening can't distinguish the differences. Now here is where beats are produced. By playing both at the same time, it produces this third little wavy kind of beat. So let's go ahead and play that. Okay, you guys can hear that?
Yeah, that's wild.
It sounds
definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like a spaceship from a 1950s movie about alien invasion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, another cool thing about learning this stuff about sounds is you can use this to your advantage when producing soundtracks for films, right? So if you know that if you take two tones that are close together like this, and you play them simultaneously, you'll get this beat tone. And so, like, let's say you wanted that, let's say you were making a little film and it was going to be about an alien abduction or something, and you filmed a little toy flying saucer held by a fishing wire, which you then went back and erased, masked out using something like After Effects or something. Then you want the sound of a spaceship, right? You could, and you can't find one that you like on the web. You can manufacture your own just by taking two tones and putting them together, right? Now, we're going to do the same thing here with this middle tone and then the top tone here. So the first two were 440 hertz and 445. The second two are 445 and 450. So they're, it's like the same difference, the 5 cycles difference there. So once again, I'll play each one for you one at a time. So here's the first one. Okay, and then I'll solo the second one, play that. They sound so close together. It's really hard to distinguish one from the other, but here's the two of them together. So once again, it's that same, beat being produced, but just at a higher pitch because these two pitches are higher than the previous ones. So, sound has a lot of eccentricities that we don't really think about or know about until we, sort of dive into it. And those things can come up in our recordings in a way that we don't like. And then if we know what's going on, we can try and fix it. Like something like phasing, which cancels out a sound, or this, beats, which produces a new sound. But there's the flip side of that, which is we can use it to our advantage if we ever want to create a special effect with that. So Abby says, reminds me of Forbidden Planet. Exactly. That's exactly, in fact, who knows? Maybe it was the audio engineers who were recording the soundtracks for these, 1950s movies or TV series. Maybe they accidentally, played two pitches at the same time and discovered beats. And they're like, that's it. That's the unique sound for our series, because certainly it stands out as being unique. And as when you hear that, you definitely think of one thing. So it's almost like a signature. It's like a brand, and sounds can be that too. And it says they did say they were experimenting with frequencies. Okay, cool, Abby. Thank you for sharing that. That's cool. Okay, so let me go ahead and go back to my notes here. Okay, so I got to move this thing over so I can actually scroll this Google thing. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go down here to this thing called perception of direction. So we don't, like I said, when we first started talking at the beginning of the class, we were talking about just waking up and being happy that you're alive and, counting your blessings, whether you focus on good things or bad things. Well, and I mentioned that we take the good things for granted, I think, as human nature, and focus on the bad things, try to improve those aspects of our lives. One of the other things we take advantage is our hearing. We don't generally think about this, but the fact is that the reason that you can tell the direction of a sound is because you have two ears, right? The two ears let you determine where the sound is coming from based on your brain measuring how loud the sound is in one ear and how loud it is in the other. Like, for example, if somebody was over here on my right and they made a sound, right, it would be louder in this ear. And then, of course, that sound would reflect off of one of these walls and bounce back to this ear. And it would be quieter in this ear. And my brain would do the calculation. If I had my eyes closed and somebody was speaking, right, I would be, you're over there, right? Kind of like Marco Polo or whatever. You got a blindfold on, and the reason that you can tell, which direction to turn and where somebody is because you have two ears, and those two ears help you sort of, get a fix on, geolocate, if you will, the sound. And of course, that exists so that we could protect ourselves from predators. You're going through the forest, you're a little twig snap over here, you need to know to run that direction, not this one, right? But what that means is, if for some reason one of your ears wasn't working properly, you would have a tough time determining where a sound is. You might have to turn your head all the way around to hear where the sound is coming from. And and this happens to some people. Some people like get a gun shot off near their ear, or maybe they get an ear infection or something. Maybe they get it damaged some other way, and then they can hear out of only one ear, and then they have trouble with perceiving, where a sound is. If you consider yourself as existing in a 360-degree bubble, people have trouble placing where that sound is in the bubble if they only have one ear, because they can't get a fix on it, right? And it says this is called spatial or binaural direction, and it's the result of three acoustic cues, something called interaural intensity differences. Well, that's a fancy phrase for a sound will be louder on one side of your head where it occurs, right? And this is also interesting. The head acts as a sound blocker, right? It makes sense. The sound's over here. Well, it can't go through your head, so it has to bounce off of something else. And that helps you perceive where it is because it's quieter over here, right? It says interaural arrival time differences. The sound arrives sooner on the side of your head where it occurs, right? So there's these three factors are all taking place, right? And then the effect of the pinnae, the outer ears, and then it's these, the way that your ear is. And believe it or not, the ridges in your ear actually serve an acoustic purpose. It says the outer ear uses two ridges to reflect sound into the ear. So you know how we talked about sound reflection and different surfaces and stuff like that? Where your ears have evolved, we talked about the fact that they're at a certain angle so that they can hear, 180 degrees in front of you, but they can also hear sounds from behind you that are bounced back. But not only are they angled, but the ridges in your ear are also angled in such a way that when the sound hits your ear, it bounces it into your ear canal here so that you can actually hear it. So it says, use two ridges to reflect sound into the ears, which introduce minute delays, right? So it's those little delays in sound being perceived by this ear and that ear, which help us place something in the 360 degrees. It says this allows us to hear sounds behind us as well as in the stereo spectrum, which is the 180 degrees in front of us. The delays are added to the intensity difference, plus what the brain knows about the world, and the result is sound localization or panning, right? Now, I can't demo this on a stereo because I don't have you guys in the room, but, panning is the term which means where in the stereo spectrum is that sound? Is it right in the middle, which means it's coming out equally of both speakers, or is it more loud on the left or more loud on the right? Okay, so let me scroll down a little bit here, go to this next section. Okay, and this is the last of my notes here for this. So the, sort of building off of what we just talked about, a direct sound is a sound wave that travels directly from the source to the listener. So if you're sitting in front of a concert, say there's an acoustic guitarist out there and they're playing, that's a direct sound, right? Early reflections are waves that bounce off of surrounding surfaces in the room, right? So in other words, it takes longer for them to travel because they're hitting a wall and coming back to you, and it takes longer to reach the listener, right? There's this term here, temporal fusion. Temporal, of course, means time, is when the waves fuse together so you don't hear a bunch of separate sounds. Now, that makes sense, right? And I'm also going to define this word reverberations again and sort of tie it all together. So reverberations are a random decaying set of sounds as the sound waves bounce around the room. Now, this makes logical sense when you think about it. Here I am inside my little studio here talking, and, the sound source, my voice is going out this way, and it's hitting these walls and it's reflecting back at me, and my ears are perceiving it, that sound, I'm hearing it, right from the source, but I'm also hearing all the reflections, right? Now, if your brain picked out all of these individual sounds and heard them all individually, you'd go nuts because there's all of this time delay, right? There's the original sound, and then it's a microsecond later there, and then 2 microseconds later here, it's bouncing off the back wall and the front wall again, right? So what your mind does, to deal with this cacophony of sound, right, is this thing called temporal fusion. It takes the fact that the sound is delayed by all these different milliseconds, and it fuses it together into one sound, which is why we hear reverberations. It's why we hear echo. It's why sound doesn't just sound flat with no space and echo behind it, because our brain, fuses it all together into a sound plus its reverberations. So we hear a sound and we hear the delay, the echo, right? And of course, if you're in like the Grand Canyon, the size of the canyon is so huge, your mind just can't wrap itself around the fact that there's a 30-second delay of you going, hello, right? It can't fuse that into one sound. It has to perceive that as a different sound. But if it's milliseconds, it can put it all together. Okay, kind of cool, kind of interesting stuff. Okay, let's go back to the website here. Okay, so I just want to define a couple more things, and then I'm going to give you guys some time to do one of two things. One, finish up your open book audio quiz and get that into me, or two, work on your Foley project, right? So just a couple more definitions here. First of all, distortion, which of course results when you overload a signal, an audio signal, right? So the audio is being recorded at too high a level. In other words, it's always hitting the red in the peak meters, right? Obviously the solution for that is to turn the gain down, turn the input volume down until you get into the yellow and the green. So if I go back here to audition, let me play one of these lower sounds, because I know these sounds can be kind of annoying at higher pitches, but let me play this lower sound here. Okay, what I want you to watch is the sound meter down here. And the rule of thumb should be, always in the green, sometimes in the yellow, never in the red, right? Always in the green means you're getting enough signal, that you can hear it. Going into the yellow are the peaks, which is okay, for your sound to vacillate a little bit. It gets a little louder, a little quieter. That actually makes it more interesting than just a boring tone. But you never want to go into the red because it's distorting. So if we listen to this one, this sound has no variation to it. It's a boring tone, but notice it's always in the green. And some, if this were a sound that was going back and forth, let's go back to, here's the beats tutorial. So this sound should be, because it has the beat in it, we should see a little vacillation in the, right? So, you know, most sounds are like that. Most sounds vary between louder and softer, but notice it never went into the red, right? So they mixed it perfectly, right? So, you know, when you're recording sound, you can look at the sound level meters, and this will be your key. If you're recording somebody for, let's see, an interview, or maybe that you're walking along talking with them, or maybe they're even doing some activity like they're hitting a baseball or something. What you want to do when you got your boom mic out there and you're getting it ready is tell them to make the loudest sound that they're probably going to make, right? And then take that level and back it, you know, it'll probably hit the red. Take your volume and turn it down so that it only goes in the yellow. And then you'll be getting, you know, all the sound that they make without distorting. Now this next one is the opposite problem, which is if you have a weak signal. If your sound is very quiet and it's just barely coming into the green, never going into the yellow, not only are you not going to be recording a good quality sound, but you're actually going to get background noise. And the background noise comes from two different sources. It comes from your environment, so ambient noise like cars passing by or somebody moving something or opening a door in the next room. You're certainly going to pick up that, because if your sound is too low, you know, it's gonna pick up just a little bit of your sound source, but it's gonna pick up a little bit of everything else. But the other thing you're picking up is you're actually picking up the sound of the recording device. Now we tend to think, oh, you know, you've got a recorder, you go record something, it's recording that sound source. But every single device out there has some noise that it makes. It introduces a little electrical hum or clicking or whatever into the mix. But usually that sound is so low that it's covered by the sound that you record, because you're recording at a high enough level, right? But when you record too low, then you can hear that sound down at that low level, right? Now there's a concept which is called signal to noise ratio. I'm going to open that up in Wikipedia here and then figure out how to scroll down in my crazy browser here. So it says, this is crazy. I can't get rid of that thing. Okay, I'm just going to make my browser a little smaller. Okay. So signal to noise ratio, also abbreviated as SNR or S/N, is a measure used in science and engineering that compares the level of a desired signal, so that would be the, you know, the loudness that you want, to the level of background noise, which once again can include ambient sounds and the sounds of the recording device. So it says SNR is defined as the ratio of signal power to the noise power, often expressed in decibels, loudness, right? A ratio higher than 1:1, greater than 0 dB, indicates more signal than noise. Okay, so in other words, you want to make sure you get a loud enough signal, because if you don't, you're definitely going to get some of the background noise. Okay, and I think, yes, that's it. Okay, so now I want to give you guys some time to work on your projects. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, so go ahead and finish up your open book quiz. Turn that in, you know, preferably by email, but if not, you can put it in your Google Drive. And then if you've already done that, please work on your Foley project. And then I think, Max, didn't you say you had a video in your folder?
Yes.
And so is it a finished project too?
Yeah, it's finished, but if we're getting more time, I can work on it some more.
Okay, all right. So Cameron or Cam asks, what day is the Foley project due? And I haven't given you a deadline for it yet, because I wanted us to get through this quiz and everything. So so let me ask you guys, because I like to work with you on these deadlines. Do you think, say, a week from today would be an appropriate amount of time to finish off your Foley project?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
That works for you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's make the Foley project due 1 week from today. So Max, that gives you time to polish yours up, and then the rest of you have a deadline to shoot for. Okay. So any other questions? Okay. All right. So why don't you guys go ahead and work?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off my video, but I'll keep my audio on. So if you have a question, you can either just ask me, you know, out loud, and I'll pop back in and answer it, or you can just use the text chat here, and I'll answer it. Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes people want to deliberately introduce distortion by turning it up to 11 for
Yes.
their.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
You always have good insights, William. Thank you. Yeah, it's true. So, you know, as I've said a couple of times now, all of these things that you're learning about audio, you know, and granted, some of it may be a little boring because you're like, I don't want to know that much about audio, right? But the more you learn, it's like being a painter, right? The more you learn about audio, the more that you can do with your paintbrush, right? It gives you a wider range of possibilities of, like what William's saying, to create special effects. So like, you know, the example of the Forbidden Planet sound, or what he just said, which is distortion, you know, that's a pretty common sense thing. But if you want to get a distorted sound, you know, max out your volume or your gain knob and you're going to get it, right? Okay, thank you, William. All right, so why don't you guys work on that stuff and let me know if you have any questions.
Would you be able to watch mine privately and provide feedback, or should I just wait until next week?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll stop the share right now and then I'll watch it and then we can talk about it. Does that sound good?
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Max, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, do you want to talk about it in the chat, or can we talk about it with audio, or do you want to chat about it?
I don't mind. Yeah, audio is fine.
Okay, so I liked it. I I felt like the first part was maybe a little long,
Yeah, okay.
and also I wondered if you wanted to do something like, remember that first project? Oh, let's see. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about a different class. But do you know how to use After Effects?
No, I haven't used it yet, but I
Okay.
can. I
Okay.
have it on my Mac.
Oh,
I can.
well, what I was going to say, I mean, you don't have to use it. I was
Okay.
just going to say at the beginning when those people are talking, it might be kind of cool to see the words written out that they're saying.
Ooh, like the context.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Um,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I know that I've would it be easier doing it on that app instead of on Adobe Premiere Pro? Because I know how to use the text on there.
Yeah, I would do it in Premiere Pro. You know, you could just make, what are they called? Title cards or something like that. Um,
Context.
you could make those and you could have them slide in or fade in and fade out as people are saying those things. Um,
Yeah.
and like I said, maybe reduce the length of that first part because the second part seems like more the meat of your presentation, your project, and the first is like the setup. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was going for. Yeah. So the setup's just a little too long,
Yeah.
and to kind of shorten that up, maybe take off like 2 or 3 people, and then make that the main or the setup, and then it'll draw into the. Okay, yeah, I can do that. That sounds good.
And then in the second part, which was also really good, I almost got two different messages. Like, um, it was kind of like your project is in three sections right now. There's the preamble there, which is the setup, right? Then there's the thing about the homework, right? But then there's some little shots at the end, which is like where you're introducing some other information, like when will it end? Do you know what I mean?
I see. Yeah, I saw that too, and I was trying to kind of tie in the ending a little bit towards the beginning, but yeah, I see what you mean. How could I, or what do you recommend or suggest?
Well, what I recommend when you do something like that is if somebody says something might be a little confusing or might be taking them off into a different direction, try taking it out and see if the project is stronger.
Okay.
So like maybe take out that title card that says when will COVID-19 end or whatever.
Yeah.
And if it's stronger, if it's more consistent, then you've succeeded.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I did show. It's funny you mentioned that because I did show one of my friends did. Everyone liked it, but one friend did say, "Okay, so is the point like the homework or is it like the
Right.
code that they
Right.
did?" I do see where it could give off like a different message. But I think just taking out the ending and then just ending it at that, taking out like the cue cards at the end because it kind of makes it more. It gives off like a different message towards the end instead of it just being about the homework.
Right. And then also think a little bit about your sound effects. You know, like, do you want to add some more sound effects in here? Did you, did you create the music or did you just pick it as fine either way? But maybe there's some things you could, obviously the audio at the beginning is sound effects. But okay, here's an example. Let's say you found a website that had these different sound effects, like these kind of menacing sounds, like boom or shh or whatever. What if you played one of those every time somebody spoke? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you're like saying it was almost like here, hold on a second. Oh, it's not turned on. Okay, I have a keyboard here. I was going to make a big bong, like crescendo sound, right? But anyway, what I'm saying is you could use those. Let's say you have 4 or 5 people at the beginning. You could play a piano chord that's kind of menacing for the first one, but it's kind of soft, and then it gets a little louder, and then louder, and then louder, and then there's a crescendo of sound, and then we cut to the second part, right? Yeah, so you know what I mean, right?
Idea. Yeah, I like that idea. Or maybe like start off soft and then in the beginning towards it gets a little more intense and then have the music just blare up. Okay.
Yeah, and then it could just stop and it could cut to that second part with the homework and stuff,
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
but it's really good. Yeah, I like it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I used the Pexels and then I used GarageBand and Adobe Premiere Pro. The music in the middle I found off one of the websites you provided us on the Dreamco.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And then the beginning is audio from YouTube. Oh. Yeah, the beginning is audio. But okay, cool. Thanks. Someone's at my door. I have to open it.
Okay, all right. I'll see you later, Max.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.